of the oil in the shock, and temperature, and the size of the path the oil can take around the shock piston. Generally, the more shock or wheel rate we have on any particular corner of the car, the less traction it will provide in proportion to the other corners. The converse is also true. Less spring rate or shock rate usually gives more traction on that particular corner. If all of these terms confuse you, don't worry about it. The idea we are trying to get across is the multitude of adjustments you can make to get better handling out of your car. The manufacturer builds cars as a compromise between the wide variety of drivers and tracks they can be run with. By dialing your car into your driving style and track, you can get huge performance gains while spending little or no dough. If theory gives you a brain cramp, use experimentation to learn tuning. Try an adjustment and see what it does. Even the pros have to practice. As we discussed earlier, wheel rate and dampening rate primarily influence weight transfer. But weight transfer alone doesn't create or change traction without a contact patch gripping the road. Now we'll show you how contact patch can be tuned. Different types of surfaces suit different types of contact patches. Rough, chunky, loose dirt surfaces require lots of tooth. In these cases, a small contact patch angled sharply to the ground usually provides better grip. The angle grips and pushes the loose dirt particles so they don't simply slide under the tire without providing any traction. Smooth, hard surfaces work better with smaller sized treads and a large contact patch flat on the ground. This is why we use foam tires on asphalt. Foam has treads, so to speak. It's made up of very small pits on the face of the tire, so small you usually can't see them. Later, we will better explain how tire choice influences a contact patch, but now we'll talk about suspension's effects on it. Caster and camber both influence the tire's angle in relation to the ground. Caster is designed into a car but can be changed on some designs, and camber is adjusted by tightening or loosening the top link on your suspension. This is negative camber, and this is positive camber. Negative camber increases the bite on the outside tire in a turn, and decreases the bite on the inside tire. Generally, more negative camber will increase traction on an off-road dirt car, and on an asphalt car we use camber primarily to get even tire wear. Caster will cause camber to change as we input steering. Positive caster helps bite the tires into the corner. Positive caster is created by tilting the arc the steering swings rearwards. Notice how the pin is closer at the top of the car. We adjust caster by changing these blocks that the steering arm is mounted on. This chassis comes with 30 degrees worth of kick up, which combined with a caster block which is tilted forward from this pin 25 degrees gives me a total of 5 degrees worth of caster. Tracks vary between two opposite ends of the spectrum, loose and rough like your average unwatered dirt track, to hard and smooth such as hard packed clay or asphalt. Loose surfaces require caster and camber settings drastically different than smooth hard surfaces. The material that makes up the track is not very solid, so large amounts of bite are required to dig in and grip it. A sharp, distinct contact patch with lots of pressure on it works well, so we use lots of caster and camber. A hard and smooth surface requires lots of contact on the ground. The track is so hard that it is impossible to dig the tire into it, so the amount of tire on the ground is more important than the pressure or angle. Use small amounts of caster and camber to keep the tire flat and the contact patch large. Remember, softer tracks, more caster and camber, and harder tracks, less caster and camber. Another adjustment we can make that primarily affects steering response is toe. Toe can be measured with a tape measure ruler. This is toe in, and this is toe out. Toe out will increase your car's response in corner entry and corner exit. Toe in will decrease your car's response and is a very good adjustment to use for the beginning driver. Sway bars also work well to tune your steering response. In this case, we build a sway bar and associated team car by using a small piece of music wire, which can be bought at most hobby stores, and aileron connectors, which are used in model airplanes. In this case, a sway bar helps resist leaning motions in the car. When the car leans and one arm moves independently of the other, the bar twists. When they move together, the bar pivots in its mount. By tightening up the sway bar, we will cause that end of the car to get less traction. By loosening the sway bar, we can gain more. This is one of the many methods we can use to adjust the car's steering response. You might also try changing your car's weight bias or weight distribution. In this case, we've got a left turn only asphalt car, so we've mounted more of the components on the left side of the car to gain more traction. You might also attempt changing your front to rear balance also. Whenever you make an adjustment of this sort, it can be very useful to quantify it by using a scale or other means. Now that we've shown you suspension tuning basics, I'll give you some examples of specific circumstances and how you should tune your car for them. This car takes the first turn very well and gets set up fine for the first jump. But after the second jump, its nose starts to come down. It took the first jump fine because it was accelerating hard, and this helps to hold the nose up. But as it gets into the final jump, it's topped out and the nose comes down. In most cases in off-road, we have to make a lot of compromises between cornering and jumps. In this case, we'll run stiffer dampening in the front and stiffer springs. This will decrease our steering response, but as you see, we've got plenty. But it will vastly make up for it in increased jump potential. Here, my truck was doing much the same thing, except I was further burdened with a great amount of understeer in the corners. I rectified part of the problem by using throttle to keep the nose high. Often you can use bursts of throttle at the beginning of a jump to help hold your nose up, but as you can see, it didn't always work. The quickest way to set up a truck or a car is often to ask someone that runs one and is successful, so I checked the qualifying sheets and found someone. I went to the guy that qualified highest and caught him when he wasn't busy, and he was more than happy to give me some advice. He suggested running a pin spike rear tire, which was more suited to the hard clay surface of this track, and a more aggressive front tread compound to make up for the heavier spring settings and the heavier shock weight he was running in the front to keep his nose high on jumps. I'd suspected this was the thing to do, but wasn't sure whether it would work, and didn't have the time to practice. So I checked with him, and he confirmed my suspicions. I was really curious whether the better front tread design he was using would make up for the understeer that the added shock and spring rate should add. My truck was already understeering quite a bit, and I wondered how much of a problem this would cause for him. The added spring and dampening rate really helped this truck become a lot more consistent through the jumps, and he had to use a lot less driving or throttle to keep his nose high. It did add some understeer though, and this is where his driving skill became apparent. He used brakes upon entry on every corner to load the front tires and cause temporary induced oversteer. This really helped him make the corners even though his truck was set up very stiff, and he still had good ability to go over the jumps consistently. Even though he had really good equipment, the biggest reason this guy is competitive is because of his driving skills. He's extremely smooth, extremely calm, and extremely relaxed, and this is very important. And he didn't place much emphasis on getting absolute speed, but on consistency. He really taught me a lot about driving this track, and it really helped me out. Later, you'll see how we both did.
To learn how to run, you must first learn how to walk.
Your performance equals your potential minus your interference.
Definitely.
Definitely, yeah.